Well, let's consider the wider issues here and bring in Olivier Guitta, who's former Director of Research at the Henry Jackson Society. Olivier, thank you very much for joining us here. It's been an important day, clearly, but the struggle to stop radicalised terrorists is still an ever-present threat. Do you feel that France is winning the battle?
Yes, just want to say I'm the Managing Director of Global Strat. I have no more affiliation with the Henry Jackson Society.
The Managing Director of Global...
Yes. Global Strat, yes.
OK, I'll make sure that is said at the end as well. Thank you. Carry on, please, sir.
So what I wanted to say is that for now, the battle is still going on strongly with both domestic and international threats. And we see that there's almost a plot a month that is foiled by security services in France. And the threat is closer to the highest level it has ever been, whether it is from homegrown terrorism, from people affiliated with Islamic State or Al-Qaeda, but also, not to forget, potentially Shia terrorism linked to Hezbollah and to French policy vis-à-vis Iran.
Indeed, and of course, French foreign policy in some way is shaping how that threat may develop, isn't it, given France's involvement in various fields of conflict around the world?
Yes, but it's less of an issue than before. I mean, what we have seen recently in terror attacks were people that were radicalized in France that sometimes didn't even want to go to Syria or Iraq to join Islamic State. And what is extremely important in terms of the counterterrorism strategy is how security services are extremely good at pinpointing the potential jihadist. Today, we released with one organization I work with, GlobeSec, a report looking at the French jihadist scene, and we found out that 97% of the jihadists that carried out attacks in France since 2012 were known to authorities, whether the police or the security services. So that's one point to remember, is that extremely good finding out of potential jihadists, but then it's extremely difficult to monitor 25,000 people.
Olivier, I can hear people, sorry to interrupt you, sir, I can hear people screaming at the screen now saying, if they know about these people, why can't they stop them?
So you have the exact point, and that's unfortunately one of the things that we're looking at in terms of the different models, is that whole screaming about what to do with the fiche S, the people that are on the terror watch list, and especially the foreigners or the dual nationals that are on this list. The question is, should we deport them like Italy does? Italy has a very no-tolerance policy for radicalization and has deported over 350 extremists in the past 2 years when they were convicted of radicalization. And incidentally, Italy, being at the top of the target list of Islamic states, for instance, has not weathered a terror attack until today. So I hear you loud and clear. I hear what's coming at them. I think it would be wise to look at the Italian model in some cases, especially the cases of foreigners on the watch list.
Interesting. Now then, the future threats, Olivier. You mentioned earlier about people being radicalised within the French borders. I think you're thinking of the deprived suburbs of certain large cities, particularly Paris, of course. Toulouse has been mentioned in previous stories, Lyon too as well. Strasbourg, the most recent example. These marginalised young people in very deprived areas, is that where the biggest threat lies, or is it in people returning, radicalised people returning from the likes of Syria?
I think the homegrown terrorism is much more problematic than returnees. I mean, I think that security services have have focused too much, and there was too much emphasis on the threat posed by people returning from Syria, and they lost a little bit the focus on the homegrown, and we've seen that the homegrown is there. And interestingly, as you mentioned, in terms of radicals, the crime-terror nexus that we see in the case of Sheriff Shekat, the Strasbourg Christmas market attacker that was convicted 27 times, is extremely prevalent. I mean, we found in the GlobeSec study that 19% of the people that we studied were multiple offenders. So there's this, from crime to jihad, there's just one step, and usually it happens in jails.
Let me bring you back to 2015 and, of course, the events in January, which have been marked today, and then later on in the year, of course, November, the horrific events around about the Bataclan, various cafes in that part of Paris, and, of course, at the Stade de France. There was criticism of the authorities, police, investigative authorities, security services, that they didn't connect, their thinking wasn't joined up. Has that been improved since that period? Do you think now that the French security services on all levels are functioning in such a way to protect the country properly?
It has improved, I mean, no doubt about it, but also the European cooperation has improved, because remember, the people behind the November attack were all coming from Belgium, and there was this controversy that the Belgium didn't share information with the French, and Islamic State was very clear on pushing some of their followers to basically attack neighboring countries rather than their own country in order to muddle the threat with the security services. But the problem lies in the sheer number of extremists. I mean, we were talking earlier about the Fiche S, 25,000 people. The security services have to make choices, unfortunately. They can, follow and monitor 24/7 a few hundreds at one time, which means they're making bets all the time on people they think could be preparing a terror attack. And that was the case in the Charlie Hebdo. The Kouachi brothers were followed and monitored by the security services for 3 years. And then, because nothing happened, they stopped the surveillance, and then a few months later, unfortunately, they carried out the attack. So it's extremely difficult, even if you have a very coordinated security service, to basically cover all your tracks. The only way to do that is to rebuild a human intelligence apparatus that will get you people to infiltrate some of those cells.
My questions have been critical of the security services, but I will state here and now they're doing a fantastic job against a very formidable enemy. And of course, it takes the enemy just one chance of getting lucky. But the thing is, the security services need to be lucky every time to make sure these things are stopped. So hats off to them for the job they're doing, and may they continue to make the improvements that you've been speaking about. Olivier Guitta, the Managing Director of Global Strat, thank you, sir, very much for joining us here on France 24.
My pleasure.
Thank you.